Hi, my name's Graham. I'm an artist in the UK and I make arty stuff. Today I'm going to be starting a new project, making a 6-page comic book. I'm going to start by moulding the main character. I'm going to use some 3D printing, some plasticine, some stop motion armature, a bit of traditional sculpting as well, and I'll basically build up the central character that I can then do the drawings of the comic from. In this first episode, I'm going to tackle the two main unknowns I've got with building my model. The first is a transparent canopy that's going to go on the top, and the second problem is how I'm going to deal with the leg joints on my character. So join me as we do some unboxing and try and solve these initial problems. There may also be some unforeseen problems along the way. As it's YouTube, we'll do the unboxing online and you can see what I'm up to. So I've got a variety of packages here with different bits of modelling equipment in for the next project. So I have got some Super Sculpey. I'm going to have a look on that camera as well. Super Sculpey. Then in here should be some sculpting tools. So that's good. And this box, this is really, really heavy. Well, it's not really, really heavy, but you know, I'm old and weak. This, assuming it's got the right stuff inside the box, I cannot believe I got hold of, and it is. That is amazing. So this is a type of plasticine called Nuplast. Nuplast. And this is what they use to make Wallace and Gromit. So Aardman used this type of plasticine, and I didn't think you'd get it anymore. I thought this company had gone bust. But I managed to find a site online that had some Nuplast plasticine, and I bought, what have I got there? 5 kilograms of it, which was only about, I don't know, it wasn't very expensive. 28 quid with the shipping. £28 with the shipping, so that's, pretty good. And then in this box, we've got all sorts of cool things. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So, in here, among lots of useful bits of modelling kit, I've got Wallace and Gromit tea. Well, I never knew such a thing existed. Wallace and Gromit tea. How cool is that? Well, I will brew of that later. Wonder if there's any Wensleydale in here. But, importantly, we've got some of these metal shapes. This is called K&S, and these are pipes, little metal tubes, square tubes, and one fits inside the other, and it's what you use for armature, for things like Aardman animation. So with the project I'm doing next, I was thinking I probably want to have the model come apart so I can separate things, and that tube might be a good way. You can just make a sort of little push fit thing, so I can assemble pieces separately, and then when I need to use the model I can put the whole thing together into one piece at the end. That was something I found was very helpful with young Herman here. He came apart a little bit, which was more by accident than design. But that really helped when I was putting him together. So I thought for the next project, that stuff will come in handy. I've got some little bits of unlabeled stuff, but this is threaded wire. I think it's 3mm threaded wire. Again, that's useful for making armatures. I've got a couple of little ball joint things. I'll show you a close-up of those in a minute, but these again are for model making armatures. Hi. Editing Graham from the future here. I'm going to unbox that last piece in a future video because it's going to be more relevant to that. Anyway, back to the video. So I've unboxed these things and I've got a nice selection of little modelling tools which I can use for both the Nuplast and the Super Sculpey. What I've done is I've printed out my current sketch of my character. I'll show it to you over there as well. There you go, that's what he looks like. So he's this kind of squid alien monster thing. What I want to do is build essentially a sort of posable maquette for when I'm drawing my comic. I want to be able to see him from all sorts of different angles because he's such, this is such a complicated shape that working out the angles from sort of up here is going to be a real nightmare. So if I've got a little model, that should really help me when I'm drawing it. And I've decided that if I wanted, you know, Herman was the first little model I made, my Big Bot Bash robot. This is about the worst thing you could try and make if you were new to modelling, because, you know, he's a squid type creature. So he's got 8 long, thin legs, bendable in every possible way. I've got this piece on the top here. So the idea for this is it's a sort of clear spacesuit helmet thing, essentially, for the squid inside. So somehow I've got to make a clear, complicated shape to sit on top of there. That with the legs are going to be the 2 most complicated things to do, I think. They're the ones I'm really unsure of. So I've got multiple different things I can try and play with here, and what I'm going to do with this model is I'm going to try and model all the different bits in lots of different ways, so I can test out what kind of modelling I like doing. So I think I'm going to go with plasticine, or this new plast, for the actual coating of the tentacles. The clear top, the space helmet, let's call it, I think I'm going to try and probably make a 3D printed section for that, and then I'm going to try and vacuum form some clear styrene over a shape that I've 3D printed. My one problem with that is the 3D printing may not be able to withstand, depending on how dense I make it inside, it might not be able to withstand the vacuum forming process. I've got, just over here, a bit of clear styrene. So this is what I would use at work for sometimes if I'm framing somebody's picture and they want a clear acrylic-y thing, or styrene in this case. This is what I use, but I have a feeling this will be too thick for the vacuum former. That's not a problem. I can get a hold of, I think it's called PETG, and I can get that pretty thin, certainly 0.5 millimeter, and that I definitely should be able to vacuum form. So that's the plan for the top. Plasticine for the legs, some 3D printed bits for these sort of sections. So the idea is he's kind of got jointed robot mech warrior kind of sections here, maybe with pipes carrying some form of liquid down here. So within the comic, the idea is the aliens are running out of water. Another thing I forgot to mention, inside this clear helmet thing at the top, I've got water. Don't know how I'm going to model that yet. Possibly have an access point at the back and then pour some kind of resin in here, but I want the water level to change throughout the comic. So if I'm going to, I might just draw that. But, you know, maybe I'll make multiple heads and we'll have a go at pouring resin in there or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to do all these experiments over several videos, I think, because it's going to take me a while to work all these things out, and I want to try different materials, see what works. So I think what I'll do is I'll break it down. I'll have a little experiment where I try, for example, using the plasticine for the legs, look at some jointing things. That might be one episode. I'll have another episode where I try and look at this space helmet thing, and we'll see how it goes from there. So I'm starting to model a little canopy shape here. I'm doing that in Blender. And then what I'm going to do is going to print that out on a 3D printer, spray it with a primer just to fill in some of the layer lines on there. And then I'll sand it back. And once that's done, it'll be ready to try and pull a vacuum form over the top of. Okay, so I've got the little buck we've made, this little fella. And what we're going to try and do is pull a piece of 0.5 millimeter styrene over the top of it. And what that means is I'm going to put it into this machine and then it'll heat up. So this is like a little, it's like a grill basically if you're making cheese on toast. This is made for dentists when they're making little sort of dental things, you know, and they need to form a shape. So what you do is you put this in the top. This goes in here. And then this thing here is the grill. So if that comes over there, heats up this plastic, it will then start to droop as it's essentially melting. And what we do then is we'll flick the heater off and turn the vacuum on. There are some little holes in the bed here. And then it will pull that sheet of plastic down onto our shape here. It will form over the top of it like that. So, put the buck in here. Get him sort of centered. Check that's doing that. Hopefully we won't blow the fuses. Gonna open the door to let the fumes out. Turn the heat on. Okay, so he's starting to warm up now, getting a little plasticky smell, and I can see the inside is just starting to dip. So if you look at that, you can probably can't see it from where you are, but it's just starting to droop. So I'm going to let that come down quite a way. So it's probably dropped by a centimetre or so now. We'll let it keep coming. Just keep an eye on it. It's got a little bit of smoke. That's probably dust because I haven't used it for a while. Coming down, 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 down. And then I think we will just turn the heat off. And that looks pretty good. So you can see that has pulled the plastic all the way down into the little holes here where the vacuum forms, and it's gone right over the buck. And by the look, there's a little bit down there where it's sort of pinched on the surface, but that's not bad. That is not bad. So let's see what's going on here. You can see the problem. That has got paper thin stretching over that. So it's got way too thin. So I'm gonna guess, so let's just have a look in here. So that's all come down nicely. The buck doesn't look like it's deformed, so that is strong enough, that's good. Yeah, but it's just, as it's stretched over this form, it's got so thin, so it's gone from being 0.5 millimetre thick to, I don't know, 0.1, if that. But apart from that, apart from the total failure, it's worked really, really well. It's a bit like playing the mad scientist, isn't it? A professional YouTuber would edit out the mistakes, obviously. Alright, that should come up to temperature a bit quicker this time. There. So that looks like it's pulled nice and neatly over that. So I'm just going to let that completely cool down now, and then we'll go very gently to see if we can get it off there. As you can see, that's far from perfect. I think I know what I've done wrong though, and I'll explain that in a minute. But before we get to that point, let's take a look at the other unknown, which is the leg joints. We've got our drawing just here, la 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 la, let's move that back. And we need to take some measurements of all the bits that we're going to try and build this from. So we have got these little chaps here. So this is just a bit of the 3mm rod, and then we've got a nut on there and we've got a ball on the end. And what we're going to try and do is build two pieces of plastic that come together and trap this ball inside here and connect it to what will be the top of the leg. So the two pieces of plastic will have some screws through, they'll tighten down on this ball, and that will allow us some movement at the top of the leg. So it'll be like a sort of solid joint up there, solid ball and socket joint. And then from that we'll have the rest of the leg which runs on the wire. That's the plan. So what I'm going to do now is try and mock up a model of this, and then we'll print it out in sections on the 3D printer over there and see if we can get that to work. So this piece here is what I've modelled, and this is basically two blocks I've modelled. I've then put in some spheres for the ball bearings and then some cylinders that run through, which are going to cut the holes for the bolts. And then on the bottom got some nut shapes which again will cut those holes out. I've then duplicated that across here and split them into the two sections, top and bottom, and then all of these shapes here get cut out by something called a Boolean operation, which is something that the software can do. It will take one shape and then whatever other shapes intersect with it, it will cut away from it, which is absolutely brilliant. So if I click this little button over here, you can now see the shapes that we've made. So this is the top half on the left, bottom half on the right. I've added this little lip on here and then cut this piece away essentially, so there's a gap around the balls, and then the idea is when I tighten this up they will squeeze down on those, which sounds really painful, but that will hold them tight. So basically what I need to do is, by tightening the screws that go in here, we can set the grip on the ball bearings, and that will make sure we can move the leg joints, but they don't just fall apart. They're still held, so we can pose them but it won't fall over, is the idea. That's just cutting out on the printer now, or just printing out on the printer I should say. So we'll give that a few minutes and then we'll see if it works. Right, so we've got these little chaps all printed out now. This is where these bits will go. They will get trapped in there like so. Nut in the bottom there. Turning these round. Don't do this at home, kids. Get yourself some proper size Allen keys. Already, that feels pretty good. So, and that bit is, we're going to put these 4 of these in here, and they are going to make. I'll grab my little drawing. Let's get that in the right place. So there's our little alien, and basically this bit is going to sit along the body just here, and then each of these little pieces that comes out at the top of the leg is going to be attached to this, and they will then have a bit of play to move around like that. So that, I think, is going to work pretty well. So obviously when we pulled this bit, this hasn't worked so great, which is quite an understatement. I had a little bit of think about this after I pulled the shape the other day when we were in the barn or in the workshop, and you can see it's slightly frosted here. Also, the piece I pulled it from became really brittle, and I think the reason for this is not styrene. I thought it was an old piece of styrene that I've got, but I think it's actually acrylic. That's why it's gone really, really brittle. And it's also why this has gone slightly cloudy, because acrylic, I believe, has air within it, trapped within it. So as this is heated up and thinned out, air bubbles within the acrylic have actually expanded a little bit, and that's why it's frosted. So I've got some other materials coming to test out, clear materials that we can pull over the buck. I think they're going to work much better. As I'm just building this as a model to work from, to do my drawings with, this technically would be good enough. I think I'd get away with it, you know, because I can see what's happening enough to draw from. But it'd be really nice if I could get it to look considerably better than this. And it would also be good for future builds as well, I think, because having got this far with this one, I can see me wanting to build really nice ones of these to do something else with in the future. So we're going to explore further. But I don't need to do any more with that at the moment. That will be sufficient for me to do my drawings from. This little test here has worked well, and there's someone at the door. I'll be back in a minute. So we need to do a recap of where we are on the project. We've got our Wallace & Gromit tea. Delicious, I think. Oh, wow. That needs more sugar. Different. Right, so we've got the upper leg part that I built. So as you can see, this has now got these little joints in, and we're going to connect the legs to the top of these bits. And the legs themselves, that's where the plasticine came in, the Wallace & Gromit plasticine. And what I've done with these is, this is obviously a very rough version of my tentacle, but what we've done is there's just a piece of armature wire inside. So what I've got is just a twisted bit, there you go, of wire inside, and then that allows this to flex around and it'll hold its pose, and that should be good enough. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little piece here, the sort of leg at the top, which is this section here, is going to cover up that bit. That will be able to move about at the top of the body, and then these will run down as the legs. So that's that problem solved. For the cockpit bit, we've kind of got this working. As I said before, I've got a couple of new materials coming in, so we can get a better version of this, hopefully one that doesn't crack, but worst case scenario, this will do for drawing. I've got a stand made. So this is the stand, there you go, see that up there as well. And basically this is just going to take the weight of the whole thing. So that's all done. So we've kind of solved the main problems at this stage. Excuse me. Tea does taste funny. It was a bit out of date. Oh. Excuse me. Anyway, that's kind of all the... Oh, that stings. Oh, anyway, sudden urge to eat plasticine. I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Don't forget to enjoy your art journey. Everything looks like plasticine. Bye for now.